one big fail that was actually
All
kind
right.
of funny, which was deciding whether or not during the really bad financial times how much to share with the employees. Then all of a sudden I'm like walking by people's computers and they're looking for jobs. And I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, you said where's the ship sinking? Like, we're going out of business. I'm like, no, I was trying to like motivate you to be like, we're down 5-0. We're going to come back and win in the greatest comeback ever. And they're like, nope, I'm out.
Today in the Curious Builder podcast, we have Paul Krumrich on for our Losers Are Winners series, and we get pretty deep on a lot of topics. And like any owner, we struggle with ADHD, how to balance it. You're going to love this episode. Without further ado, here's Paul. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I've got Paul Krumrich from Greenway Solar, from Spy, from Donkey Label, and whatever company he started yesterday. A returning guest from episode. Do you remember what episode you were?
No,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Year and a half ago. If you want the full, if you like this episode, you want the full unfiltered Paul episode, go back maybe 50 episodes. We had Paul on for a 1 hour episode. But today is our Losers Are Winner series. Paul was kind enough to jump on to share just some things he's learned over his career of mainly about losing. This whole series, as those that have been following it, is all about ways owners have stumbled their toes and hit their faces in adversity. I've had like 3 this morning, by the way. And basically what we learn from them and how we keep going, because I'm convinced that unless you lose, you don't really know how to win. So with that long intro, Paul, what's up, buddy?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm good. What
on the ride in this morning, I rode my bike and I was trying to think of all the different stories and which ones make sense. So we'll see. See
what you got. What are some ones that come to mind?
I think one I kind of shared in the time we did the podcast was taking a loan and using it for the wrong things.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We had for a while before, we switched to just doing commercial audiovisual. We used to do residential, and we bought a condo penthouse in Bloomington and built it out to be a place that we could have events. And that was 18 months before the 2000 whatever it was financial crisis, which just blew that up in our face. The list goes on. So I guess we just you zero me in on where we want to go.
Well, you know what's funny? It reminds me actually of a parenting thing. Parenting and business is somewhat serious or similar. I heard a great quote years ago, and it was parenting is a contract with failure.
Yeah.
Like basically, it's just like a series of mistakes. I always joke that when the baby came out, there was no instructional manual of like what to do, nor like how to work with your spouse through all that stuff too. So it's all learning on the job. So it turns out that business is just another synonym for life. And so
I think it's true. Like you can go to school, I guess, for entrepreneurship, but really 95% of people that have a company didn't do that. They just wound up there and are trying to figure it out,
I will say that, and I agree. I mean, most of the owners that I know that have been on this podcast came into it, sort of learned, if you will, School of Hard Knocks, and it's very valuable. Obviously, I think if I was to choose, well, let me ask you this question. If you had to choose between skill or willpower, which one would you pick?
Willpower.
Yeah, me too, all day long.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, if you think about it, like a person other than us, or the type of person that does it, would have quit 27 times. Right. The risk, like you get to that point where you're like, okay, this could go south and could get way worse. I need to get off now and just save what I've got and try to put it together. Right.
But don't you think the risk tolerance is obviously much greater? But honestly, I think even understanding risk is sort of, I can only speak for myself. I don't really consider risk. And maybe I should. Maybe I'd be more successful if I did, but maybe most owners don't. Like, I'm not saying don't understand your risk. I mean, I think it's super important you understand your numbers and I think as you get further in your career, the more you understand specifically about your numbers, your overhead, your work in process, all that stuff is super vital. Like cash is your blood flow. Without it, you die on the vine. So I'm not minimizing that, but I also am saying, like, if you're always analyzing your risk, you're never going to go anywhere. It's a little bit like, I know you love biking, right? If you thought about all the times you could crash on a crit, like you should not be racing a crit. If you are a downhill skier and all you think about is crashing into the trees, you should not be downhill skiing. Like there is something to be said about looking forward. I guess getting on a soapbox here, but like, we have 2 eyes in the front of our head, not behind us. We're sort of meant to have forward momentum looking forward. If we spend the whole time looking back, like that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. I'm not
Yeah, I
saying you
mean,
don't, I don't, it doesn't mean you don't stop and round the wagons and look and say, like, hey, what did I learn? That's what this podcast is doing right now. But you got to go forward.
right. Well, I think that's the point isn't you're not I think some people feel like you're immune to the fear or the risk, where I think it's the opposite, which is you don't dwell on it. You know it's there, but you also kind of feel like, well, that's not going to help. Like I know that there's a low percentage this is going to work, but I'm going to make that percentage higher by making it work. And I think that's the attitude, which is the failure doesn't scare you. Like no one wants to fail. Like I think part of what keeps you up at night is not wanting to fail more than wanting to succeed, but knowing that if you just stay in your bed all day, nothing's going to happen, and so you got to will it to happen. And I think that's kind of the skill of an entrepreneur is what I've always been told, and I think it's true, is like one of the few skills I have is just being able to sleep at night with the debt or with the risk or with like some people just can't do it. They'd stay up all night and never sleep and freak out. We have this ability to get up the next day and get after it, even knowing that, you might be pushing a rope uphill sometimes.
So I got a question for you. Do you think, so I was thinking about compartmentalizing parts of your life. And maybe we should see a shrink. We could do
Yeah.
it. Maybe we'll get a group special if you and I saw a shrink together. But where I'm going with this is, and this is one, it wasn't where I was intending to go, but it seems applicable. I wonder if as an owner, we're used to compartmentalizing success, failure, different people, our employees, our work, our personal life. Like we have all these little boxes and we sort of contain them in this, and at least that's what I do. You contain them in these little, and not that they don't bleed. I think organically they move. Like obviously if things are difficult personally, it's going to make your way into your business. If things are great in your business, things
Yeah.
obviously permeate this membrane, of course. For instance, it's just really been on my mind a lot. Like we live a half a mile away from where the Annunciation shooting was, right? And so like it's pretty close to home,
Yeah.
right? I've got little kids. I'm down the street. Like we walk by that place all the time. And what parent isn't thinking about that? That being said, I don't know what to do with that information. Like I don't, and this is true of like what I read about Gaza or the war in Ukraine or honestly famines in Africa. I mean, I've always sort of wondered like, what do you do with all this information that yes, I feel empathetic towards it. Yes, I feel sorrow. Yes, I feel all those emotions, but I sort of like don't sit and dwell in them. I kind of like put them in the box. I'm aware of them. And then I sort of move on. Do you think that's a entrepreneur mindset? Do you think that's a guy mindset? Is that like, do you relate to what I'm saying at all or
Yeah,
not?
yeah, no, I mean, I don't know the stats on, like, ADHD or stuff like that in entrepreneurs, but I've been watching The Pit with my wife, this one of these HBO shows about this emergency room, and it just I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
No, I've heard a lot about it though.
it's just one day and every hour is an episode, and it's a 15-hour day, right? And in one of the episodes we just watched, someone asked this doctor because he goes from, like, telling someone their kid's not gonna wake up to, crazy stuff, emotional roller coaster, and they're like, how do we do this? Like, how do you even get through a day? And the guy's like, because we have ADHD and anything else would be boring and we wouldn't be able to handle it. And it's kind of that thing where he's going from crazy situation to crazy situation to crazy situation and just finishing one, starting the next, not bringing in to the next room the crap that happened in the one before. And I kind of feel like that's, I don't want to put our jobs like an ER doctor, but
It's the mindset, or it's basically the personality traits that are somewhat similar, is basically where
yeah,
you're
that you
going with
can
this.
handle a huge win and not like go spend all the money and think you're rich and handle a huge loss and not think we're out of business, we should shut it down. Like you temper everything, and then some people I'm sure think we're crazy because like how are you not excited about that or how are you not depressed about that or how are you able to just move into the next thing? But like you're just kind of taking these deals individually and getting through the day of because like what day goes by where it's not like 15 problems, right?
Right. Or, it's like, or if it gets really quiet, you're bored. It's kind of the classic thing. It's like when your schedule's really full, you're like, man, if I just had a couple hours. I mean, who
Yeah,
hasn't said, like, if I could just have a couple hours, how much? And like when meetings cancel, every
yeah,
owner's favorite thing is when your meetings cancel because you're like, oh, you feel productive. Like I can catch up. But if you have days on end where you have nothing,
yeah,
it's what's that old saying? idle hands is the devil's workshop. I think
Yep.
it's like, basically it's like, I'm not saying you get up to no good, but it's like, oh, I got time for a bike ride or a run, or I'm going to start a new business rather than staying on
Right.
point. And I think every blessing is a curse. Every pro is a con to a certain degree when it goes to the extreme. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think the ability to sort of grasp a topic, let it go, grasp a topic, let it go is also probably the dopamine hit that all of us are sort of attracted to. I'm not saying it's good. I think it's just part of
No.
I think just part of what makes a lot of owners, who they are.
Right.
I
Because you
often
have to have a little bit of a crazy belief in what your vision is that's going to work, right? Like you have to have that no one else maybe agrees with or sees. You have to have that north star that you're pushing towards, because if you take your foot off the gas, everyone else will too. So if you're not out there charging, like the energy I think behind you, like you said, look forward not back, starts to lag. And so that's, I think, the toughest part. I mean, going back to your original question about failure is to get to where even I've gotten, there's been 15, 20 huge screw ups along the way. And some people can point those out as like a point of failure that you screwed up. And you can dwell on that too as an owner. Like, yeah, I'm not very good at what I do because of that. But then sometimes you got to give yourself a little grace to be like, but we're here, and had I not tried that one, we wouldn't be here, even though the three I tried before that were failed.
For those that have been listening to Curious Builder podcast, you know how much I love the Contractor Coalition Summit. It's been the single biggest force multiplier in my business over 21 years. We're excited to announce again that we're coming back to Chicago November 7th through the 10th. All the details can be found at thecontractorcoalitionsummit.com. And under the promo code for a $2,500 discount, type in Curious Builder. We'll see you in Chicago.
Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine.
One of the things, and people can tune back to your original story, and I'll give just the short summary if you want to add to it. But essentially, during the recession, you took out a huge personal loan to pay the salaries of your people, which from a heart standpoint and from a care standpoint was the right move. From a business standpoint, you basically said later, like in hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. Like the
Yeah.
debt that you accrued because of that really handcuffed you for years to come. And if you were to face that situation again, you would handle it differently. All you can ever do in retrospect is have kindness with yourself or a little bit of mercy,
Yeah.
because like none of us have a playbook on how that all goes, right? In hindsight, you look at COVID differently, you look at the recession differently, honestly, look at everything differently, of course. And all
Yeah.
you can do is, and I don't even like predicting the future. Like right now, it's super uncertain times, and it seems even more volatile. But is it any different than it's always been? Sometimes I think we get so caught up in, and it's pretty wild right now, all the different narratives that are happening. But like sometimes you got to turn down the noise and like focus on the thing that is most at hand. And I had
Right.
this morning my coffee maker wasn't working, so I had to keep on processing it, so I had more time than usual. And so I was looking at some YouTube clips about like the end of the financial markets. And I was like, dude, why am I consuming this? Because like at the end of the day, like if I have a couple jobs and I can, like all I can control, like I can't control the global economy. I can't control the interest rates. Like there's so many things I can't control. How about I just come back to what can I control?
Right.
And that's all any of us can really do.
Yeah. I mean, I rode by your Honey Hill this weekend and was thinking about it went from a sign in the street to now it looks like a legit development, And so, like, even though rates are high and these are tough times, like, it's happening. And I think stuff will continue to happen. And yeah, we all have to decide, are we going to go full gas or try to temper our growth or our goals based on, and I don't know the answer either. I just think you're right. You got to be probably easier on ourselves than we are, but that drive is also what keeps us going. And so it's both sides of the coin in terms of like the good and the bad of our personality types that get you to where this is.
Yeah.
And if you ever stop, will be willing to fail because it's kind of like people say they get more conservative as they get older, right? Like as a business owner, does that is that what you should do too and get more conservative, or is it like, because even look at now, like your decision could be let's go gangbusters because everyone else is going to be pulling back. We can go. Like there's a spot for the person that goes, even in a bad, economy. I look at the
Yeah.
same thing for us.
I mean, it's everyone has different risk profiles. I think of like obviously interest rates or, leveraging things like that. And I think everyone has to also be sort of everyone has their own unique situation. I think someone was mentioning the other day, like, what is risk? And the quote was essentially as your skill increases, your risk decreases, or sorry, competency decreases risk. And all I
Yeah,
can relate it to is like biking or skiing or some sport,
sure.
because you and I love sports. But like, it doesn't mean that there's not risk. I mean, with the Tour de France is just over, and like Tadej Pogacar is one of the most talented bikers in the world, he still fell on his bike going 30 miles an hour.
Right.
It doesn't mean he's going down a mountain pass at 70 miles an hour. Like, that is extreme risk. He's also
Yeah.
extremely competent. And so it's like, I think of as business owners, all you can do is mitigate the risks the best you can, but then acknowledge them, be okay with them. Like, and
Right.
it's okay to slow down. Like in rainy conditions, you got to slow down. In
Right.
difficult conditions, you got to slow down. I don't think the answer is to speed up if it's, that dangerous, but sometimes going slow is very dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to put hesitation. I mean, the worst decision is to do nothing.
Yeah.
I think go. I think the best entrepreneurs I've interviewed are ones that they handle it quickly and they move on. Because if you just sit there and idle, it paralyzes your team and it paralyzes you.
Yeah. I think action, even if it's the wrong action, to me is better than waiting. Right. And I tell my kids that for soccer, like the guy that gets hurt's not the one that makes the slide tackle. It's usually the one that, like, so if you got to pick, go,
Right.
and I kind of feel like it's that way too. Like our job as leaders is to decide what to do. And I don't think you should make quick, crazy decisions, but you can't just be deer in the headlights either. And so, hey, crew, interest rates are high. Here's our plan. Here's what we're doing. Let's start tomorrow. That's better than, oh gosh, what do we do? Like acknowledge it, make a plan and move on, and don't be afraid to change that plan once you know better.
So let me ask you this, and it's a bit of a edged question. Do you, if I just quickly give me your first response, don't think about the answer. Do you think of yourself as a leader?
Yes.
Why?
Because I'm willing to have the energy and make decisions or the North Star for our organization.
I
And
think
I
that's
think when tough times arise, I put the company first before myself.
Yeah, I'd say that's a mark of a good leader. If I was to answer the question, the reason I thought about it is if I was to, I don't actually consider myself, I know I am a leader and I'm comfortable being a leader, but I don't consider myself a leader, if that makes sense. Like, I don't
Yeah,
wake up in the morning and think, and maybe this is to my team's detriment. I don't think about like, oh, I should have a really clear vision for my team so they know what to
right.
do. I don't think like, hey, lead by example. I mean, I am doing those things, hopefully, but I don't give them enough time and space. It's actually something I could probably benefit from. Like, I like you're a little bit more seasoned than I am. I like your answer that like
Yeah,
I need to. I just read something this weekend that was basically like, what, as owners of companies or leaders, what are things that we can do to help the people on our team? And it's have a clear vision. Like, what
yeah,
is the purpose of your company, your goal, whatever it might be. And yesterday I was we're doing this, as you know, this spec home in Deep Haven called Misahus. And I've kind of made it my one thing. It'll be about a 2-year project, meaning
yeah,
like from the time I created the brand to finishing it, I wanted one thing that every day that dictates my action, and everything else I do within Mark Williams Custom Homes, my building company, is somehow impacted by that one thing.
yeah,
And so that's actually given me a ton of clarity. And I told my PM the other day, there was something that we had to redo, and my goal behind it is maybe the brand or the company I used to be several years ago, and to be clear, like, we've always done really good work, but like, my goal now with this house is because we've set the bar so high, higher than, maybe it's even higher than we can achieve. And
yeah,
that's okay, right? It's okay to me. It's okay to not hit the top, like it's a goal, right? A marathon time, like you're going for your PR, but you're always going for your PR, whatever it is. Like set
Right.
something that is going to challenge you. And so I told my team, I said, I want this to be something that when not only we look at it, of course, we're proud of it, but I want other people to look at the commitment that we're making to quality. Like a couple nails are out of line that you never see on a second story.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to redo it. And I could tell my team was a little bit like, really? And I was like, yeah, really. Because architects are going to look at that. Designers are going to look at
Yeah.
that. Like the future of our company is based on the quality of execution. And if we're not going to critique ourselves, well, then to that level, then we're inviting the public to do it. And to be clear, nobody's perfect. Like I
Right.
could find 1,000 things that I do wrong. It's
It's
not.
kind of like the Apple thing where Steve Jobs was worried about the circuits and how they looked on the inside of the computer when everyone's like, no one's going to see that, So
Oh,
it's,
I like that
oh
one.
yeah, he made them redesign the internal circuits to be beautiful, even though they were like, what are you talking about? Like, no one will ever open this up. He's like, I don't care. So,
It's the intention. Oh, I mean, he was a visionary. He had,
but I would say, going back to what you said, like, I am a de facto leader because I stuck my neck out and started the company. But whenever I watch sports and I see that now they have cameras everywhere. So you hear the coach, of the Vikings or of the Minnesota United talking to their players, then I think I'm not a leader because I'm like, wow, I don't think I got that.
I think I think it's, if you were to say you were a coach, I think your mindset would be different, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're not a leader. Meaning
Right.
like,
So my company, I'm a good leader, I think, but not a great coach. So
that's
I've tried to hire good coaches because I'm not a great day-to-day manager of people. Right. I'm good at selling, but can I teach a team to sell? Probably not. Right. And so that's one thing lately we've done well here is gotten some really good, if you're talking NFL, the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach are amazing. Right. And that's helping us really get to that next stage where I couldn't do it by myself because I wasn't good at those parts.
most owners, myself included. I think all owners. I mean, no one's good at everything, obviously, right? And
Yeah.
most owners tend to be somewhat similar because it takes a amount of energy to take an idea and then start a business off of it. So they're usually charismatic salespeople, hard drivers, those kinds of things. But those qualities don't make for a very nurturing environment often, right? And
Right.
I think of like, some of the best coaches. Usually, I mean, the best coaches are not the best runners or the best athletes. Like when was
Right.
was Bill Belichick, like the world's best quarterback? I don't even know
No.
if he played football, but
Yeah.
and so like that seems to be a pretty common thing. And I was listening to Founders as a podcast that I really like, and it's all about memoirs and biographies of people. But like the owner of Rollerblades started here, right back
Yeah.
in the.
My cousin's wife worked there,
Oh,
and
really?
I had one of the earlier pairs when I was in college and rollerblading around campus.
Anyway, the short version of it was he was super charismatic, awesome idea, one of one, but he just couldn't scale. And
Yeah.
eventually he lost control of his own company because he couldn't empower other people. And this is the short version. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
more to it than that. But, I think a lot of owners fall. I don't think I'm great at scale personally. And now as I've gotten older, like I kind of want to do mini scale, but like I also don't really want to either. And I think as we look at failure, sometimes we can be harsh on ourselves and say, well, why didn't you get further in your career? And who are you judging it against? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're all racing our own race.
Right.
I think as you get older, hopefully you realize that, you're not really beating anybody, except it's just what are you happy with and what does your internal engine and family and circumstances sort of dictate. In my opinion, I just equate so many things to sports that,
Right.
you just become realistic. I'm not saying I'm not competitive. I'm not saying I don't want to beat somebody, all those things, but like, can you also find the joy in it? Can you
Right.
find like the self-satisfaction in a job well done? I think those are honestly more meaningful than saying like, oh, I beat out XYZ company at
Right.
whatever.
Well, I mean, all of us are somehow deeply competitive people because you get into, I personally think, you play sports as a kid or you're competitive with school, and then you get into this next arena, which is a business owner or whatever, and the scorecard is kind of growth or finance. It's like these weird things that you then get caught up in terms of winning and losing, and then you hopefully get older and having kids and stuff gives you some perspective on what's important, and then you realize, okay, maybe that's not the scale I need to measure. And
Mhm.
then what is the new scale? And it's like to your point, like maybe it's a balance, or maybe it's staying local instead of being a national, like not traveling as much. So like, all the different things. And that's some gray hairs and wisdom hopefully comes to us all. But that's, I think, the next phase of it, which is maybe my risk profile is still the same, but now I'm looking out for other people a little bit more. So my risk profile that I would take action on goes down a hair. But it's hard because what got you here is kind of that opportunistic ability to take risk and to see things others don't and make a move quickly. So you also don't want to give up on that because that's kind of your secret sauce.
Yeah, I mean, I think drive is. I think, and also if you're not, I mean, if you're not being fulfilled, or if you're not being creative, if you're not finding energy in what you're doing, like it seems like the exit is pretty close.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's funny that I was at a soccer tournament with Torben's on a new team, and one of the doctors is an ER doc, and I was talking to him about his job, and he's like, "Well, yeah, it's all a bunch of us with, like I said, ADHD." And I'm like, "Well, I probably would have been a good doctor." And he's like, "Yeah, but look at what you got here." He's like, "It's kind of the same thing. You got this and that, and it's keeping your mind going, and so you've got a similar thing that you've built, which is what I have, kind of with always someone new walking in the door, and what do I do?" And so you find your spot with your personality, and so I think you said earlier, just probably being a little kinder to ourselves is step one.
Yeah.
you
I
know
think I remember it's funny as you get older, all these, for me, it's my dad had all these adages that when I was a young kid, I didn't get them, or I understood what they were, but now they just have so much more meaning. So some of them come up to mind while we've been talking. One was steady at the helm. I actually say that a lot, to my kids too, or just, hey, you mentioned it before. When things are really good, you do really great. Don't go buy something crazy. And when things are really bad, like you
yeah,
just kind of got to ride the highs and the lows. And that's a hard lesson to learn because
right,
of course, we'd love to be, and it's not that we're not excited, but I wonder if, correct me if I'm wrong, but going back to the big mass things that happen in the world, like wars and famine and some of these terrible things that happen, I wonder if we've been conditioned to sort of be steady at the helm. That we, at least for myself, I find that I
right.
don't react as viscerally as because I kind of just stay sort of neutral through it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of like if I could change anything about my personality, it would probably be a little bit more, not emotional, but like you're kind of trained to just steady at the helm, and then sometimes people are like, "Why don't you care? Why are you?" like you're not excited about this and everyone else is, or you're not bummed, and so it's hard to make yourself react when you're not naturally programmed
Yeah,
to do that. But I do feel the same way. Like I should care more about certain things that I'm okay with just kind of moving on. And that's probably not good.
I
you
don't
know?
know. I don't know. How much of it is just the makeup that you are. Like, let's call it empathy.
Yeah.
Like,
But like I mean, I'll cry at Rudy because it's, about
right.
like dad and his kid, and like that to me, I get emotional over. But like you said, things that are maybe not that, because maybe I have an attachment to that as a kid and a dad or whatever.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like those things get me, and then other things that should don't.
Don't.
You know?
It's interesting you mentioned doctors. I know that they do. There are some. I mean, other jobs do have compartmentalization for good reasons. I think like if you're doing surgery on somebody, if you're doing open heart surgery, they don't have like the head exposed and everything. Like
Yeah,
they put cloths over everything, so you're just looking at just the heart. It's a
yeah,
tool. It's an organ. It's still living. I'm sure there's still emotion to it, but like you do that enough times, it becomes routine, and you want it to be routine because you
right.
wouldn't want your surgeon to their hand to be trembling and all that
Yeah,
stuff. And we're in this sense, like there is a place for compartmentalizing. I think at some you don't want to get jaded. Yeah, I think that's where like our spouses and our family community, our friendships, the people we spend time with, I think that helps us stay grounded. And
yeah,
I think it's important sometimes. Sometimes you do need a kind of a little knock, like, hey, like you need to, pay attention because yeah, I think you just need people in your life that sort of can help see when you need to kind of sort of be jostled, and
right.
sometimes you're fine just the way you are.
I hope so.
Well, we've answered nothing. Thanks for that
Yes, I
circular
know.
logic.
I kind of feel
Curious.
like, yeah, we went around in some big
That's all
circles.
right. That's
That's
all. That's what a podcast is. You just talk. See, we're just talking about our feelings.
well, I can give you one big fail that was actually
All
kind of
right.
funny, which was deciding whether or not during the really bad financial times to how much to share with the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was young, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just be super open and honest. I'm going to tell them exactly what's going on, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like walking by people's computers and this will date the story, but they're on monster.com looking for jobs. And I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, you said where's the ship sinking? Like, we're going out of business. I'm like, no, I was trying to like motivate you to be like, we're down 5-0. We're going to come back and win in the greatest comeback ever. And they're like, nope, I'm out.
That's so awesome.
And
That's
so then I was like, maybe
amazing.
we don't tell everyone everything, cause I'm like,
I think the shared vision, you're right. I think it's the shared vision. It's a little, I mean, going back to the kid thing, like, I think it's important to tell your kids what's happening in the world, but like, you don't have
yeah,
to share every single scary thing. Like, I don't want my kids walking down thinking that they're not safe anywhere either. So it's a hard
right.
balance, but that's true of business too. Yeah, I think it's important, the last couple of years for us, financially things were more difficult. I think the people saw it. I don't know how much I talked about it or didn't talk about it. I think they could see the stress or hear the stress. And as things have gotten better, like, you sort of also want to reward those people. So like, we sort of did a freeze on salaries for a little while. And then when we kind of came out of it, we're like, we want to reward the people that stood by us. Right. And
Yeah,
then, and so I think that's what I think the common goal, the star, you talked about the North Star, like, this is where we're going. This is what, and I also think we need them to know, because we need their help to get there.
yeah,
I'm doing this thing right now where I'm having all the subcontractors sign the house.
that's
I had
cool.
this idea a little while ago, and so I have just never implemented it. So today I had my framers sign some 2x6s. It's a small gesture.
Yeah,
I should have told them about it when they started framing versus at
yeah,
the end. Because the
yeah,
idea is, like, if you're going to put your name on something, you're
right,
probably going to consider it and be more thoughtful about what you do with it.
right.
And I had the HVAC guy. It was so funny. So his name's Lennon. Shout out to him. The guy's, he's a young kid. He's 26 years old, super excited, but he's on camera. And all I want him to say is, like, go up there and sign this, this ductwork. And he's like, yep, this is only the second house I've ever worked on. And I'm so excited to be here. And I was like, all
You're
right,
like,
this is like, it was so awesome.
yeah,
It was so real. It was a hot take. And so, I mean, we'll post it. I mean, why wouldn't I? It's real.
yeah,
And I guess, it's funny. I sent it to his boss, and I just kind of said, hey, I'm really excited about the work that he's doing. He was so excited to be part of Misa Hoos, and like, he's pretty
yeah,
jazzed. And I just kind of said, like, there is someone who's oversighting on this guy, right? And his boss was like, yeah, but we also think that the best way to learn how to swim is just put him in the deep end, and if he makes it, he makes it. I'm like, you know what? I got you, buddy. I mean, I can't preach
yeah,
out here. I can't preach on a podcast and say I want young people in the work and then be a
right.
hypocrite when I got a young guy saying, like, yeah, this is the second house I've ever worked on. I'm like, oh boy.
Yep. But hey,
So
you gotta start somewhere, right? So
yeah. So anyway, he was super grateful. Well, I don't want to take up any more time. It's officially the longest Thursday episode because we got too many good stories.
that's awesome.
Thanks for coming on at short notice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.